This is Speaking with the Enemy on the Ticats Audio Network. Here is Louie Butko.
Yes, the show is Speaking with the Enemy. The enemy this week, the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And to discuss that, we bring in Britton Gray. He's the Riders reporter for CJME in Saskatchewan. And, Britton, if the playoffs were to start today, the Saskatchewan Roughriders are a playoff team. There's no disputing that. The facts back it up. They're in the crossover position. Do they feel like a playoff team right now?
Not right now, no, because this team has struggled to put together wins over the past 2 months. They started 4-1, they're now 6-9. So that is, you lose 8 of your last 10. It's hard to feel like a playoff team. They've lost 4 in a row. They went winless in September. But at the same time, like you said, they're in the playoffs. They've been in a playoff spot essentially all season. So it's been really tough for people who want changes, for the Riders to really go out and make a bunch of changes, because you've been battling for playoffs the whole year. You've been in the playoffs for most of the year. So this is a very interesting game for both teams, because it's not a playoff game. No team can even clinch a playoff spot this week, but it feels that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the Ticats, the word around town is that, this is a playoff game for the Ticats. They look at this, they know it's a home game, they know where they stand. But there isn't really that sense of urgency in Saskatchewan because, like you say, they can't clinch. They can obviously do themselves a favor if they win. What's the mood like around this team right now? Like you say, they're not winning games. Is it upbeat? Is there a belief, or are they shrugging their shoulders a little bit?
There's a belief, absolutely. This team is still remaining optimistic, but players have been telling us that there is a little bit of downness in the locker room as well. This team hasn't been able to win. That's frustrating for any professional player when you go on a losing streak. And some of this outside noise has gotten a little bit into the locker room. Duke Williams, a few weeks ago when he was practicing, hasn't played yet. We don't know when he'll see him again. But he said he talked with the team because people were talking about the outside noise. And this team has had a lot of it this year with all the off-field distractions they've had, suspensions, fines. There's been a lot of stuff going off the field that you would never want to happen during a season. So they have to deal with that. But overall, this team still feels confident. I think what brings some of that confidence is that once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. No teams come from the crossover and made it to the Grey Cup quite yet. But eventually, maybe one has to. If they keep the crossover rule eventually one has to. And the Riders think they can do it. But I can tell you, not a lot of optimism from the fans, because what have we seen from this team that goes to show that they can win a game they need to win? Because they win one game in September, this is a different feeling for this game. They would be able to clinch. You're not in as bad of a spot if you lose. But now if you lose and you're the Riders, it gets really tough for you to make playoffs.
Yeah, 2 games, I believe, against Calgary after this one. And then the Ticats have 2 against Ottawa and a game in hand in which they'll have to go to Calgary. Obviously not an easy thing to do. Cody Fajardo, a pending free agent, guy who bet on himself, a guy who has belief, who played through injuries and was playing well through it. I mean, what's the deal with Cody Fajardo? Can you tell me?
I mean, it is an interesting kind of puzzle. Jeremy O'Day needs to figure out, if you're looking at the offseason, what to do with Cody Fajardo. You signed him in 2019 when he was at his ceiling almost, when he was having that great year. It's been regression ever since. It's just been getting worse and worse. Now, this year, he has been dealing with the injury. He's been fighting through that. He's the best option for the Riders to win right now. But you have to decide what the future holds. And I think that's a conversation you have to figure out what you need to pay Cody Fajardo if he is your guy, because you can't pay him top dollar. He hasn't played like a top quarterback over recent seasons. But then what better options are there out there? It's people can have all these dreams about maybe Bo comes here, right? But Bo, his shoulder has been an issue over the previous few seasons. You don't know if you're going to get a full season of prime Bo anymore. Some people want to think Zach Collaros might come back to Regina. I don't see that happening in any realm of possibility, but people throw it out there. And yeah, so it's a conversation you need to have with him. But right now, Cody Fajardo is the best option for this team to win. He's still the leader of this team. I think that they have faith in him still. But this last 3-game stretch goes a long way in determining what you do with Cody Fajardo long-term as well.
I think I think Ticats fans might be able to relate. Just some of the issues, the offensive line, some inconsistency there. I know they've given up almost 60 sacks this season. Where do you see the real holes on this team that need to be fixed going forward this season? And like you said, a lot of work for O'Day in the offseason.
I mean, the offensive line is an issue, but they got Dan Clark back and they gave up 0 sacks last week. All of a sudden, that offensive line had a newfound confidence. That's what Dan Clark brings, a veteran presence, someone you can have confidence in. And it's a guy who's just seen it all, and you don't have to question what he's seeing. If he tells you to do something, you're listening to what Dan Clark is telling you to do. So we'll see if this offensive line continues to gel. It's the Riders' pass rush. This Riders' pass rush was elite at the beginning of the season. I think they had 8 sacks against Hamilton early in the year. It's disappeared over the past few weeks. They have 6 sacks in 6 games. Like, that is not good enough, especially when you're against some of these top quarterbacks, which the Riders have faced recently, because you give any quarterback enough time, they're going to find a wide receiver at some point. That's just how it goes. So the Riders need to figure out what is going on with that pass rush, how you can fix it, and then get back to doing what they were doing early in the season, which was sacking quarterbacks at a very high rate.
Yeah, you mentioned that was that first game of the season, I believe, against the Ticats, in which they came out and had a performance, and we were thinking, okay, this Saskatchewan defense might be really good, and I guess it was the Ticats offense that just struggled that game. That's another story. Okay, we've been a little negative. Let's talk some positive. Give us some bright spots on this Riders team in 2022.
Some of the bright spots has been the rushing attack. Now the Riders are dealing with injuries at the running back position. Frankie Hickston, Jamal Morrow played really well when they were out there. And now you have Shaq Cooper, who's back for his 3rd time with the Riders this season. He's going to get the start this week. In terms of positives, you had the emergence of Roland Milligan. He's played really well at defensive back this year. And the linebacking core, which we thought was a strength of the Riders this year, has been. Larry Dean and Darnell Sankey are both among the league's elite. Trying to pick which one of those guys is the most outstanding defensive player is going to be a challenge, because both of them have played so well. And Derek Moncrief has 4 interceptions, which is really good as a linebacker. They trust him a lot in coverage. So that's kind of been the strengths of this team. But you want to talk about strengths, it's hard to find any real positives for this team when they've gone on this slide. There's been a lot of inconsistency, and part of that, they haven't played a full 4 quarters yet. This team disappears at times, it seems, during games, and we saw it against Winnipeg. They look like they might be able to compete with Winnipeg, might even be able to beat Winnipeg. You get it within 4 points. Winnipeg needs 4 plays, and they put up 14 points. That's just how this team has gone all year. So I would say the positives have come on defense, and it's been the fact that the linebacking core and the money you spent there has been well worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously know personally what Larry Dean can bring to a team. You actually wrote about it recently this week. Comeback player of the year, if there was a trophy for it, should be his, just because really what he's done from an injury on the first day of pre-training camp, right, in 2021 to where he is now. What is it about Larry Dean and is his leadership something that he's a quiet leader, right? He's not the loudest guy. Is it something that some of the younger players that you've seen him like just kind of hold court with younger players just because they know what he brings? Absolutely. And the coaches notice it too. They said his work ethic and his leadership, it just it translates onto the field, and it translated into him coming back from the Achilles injury. He was in there working every day. He stayed in Saskatchewan to rehab and working with the coaches to get back to this point. And it's just such a great story because Larry Dean, he's 34 years old, which we know that once you get past 30, everyone has all these questions. But he's 34, tore his Achilles. 2020 season was canceled. He hadn't played football in a long time. And the fact he's been able to come out and have this season where you have to look at him as a potential all-star alongside Darnell Sankey, a possible most outstanding defensive player alongside Darnell Sankey. Like, both those guys together have been just so dynamic for this Riders team. And part of that is Larry Dean's ability to come back because of the work he puts in day after day. And he's a leader to the young guys, as
they try and make their way through their first steps of the career. This is a guy who's done it all, undrafted free agent, played in the NFL for years, all-star in the CFL. And it's so nice to see him get rewarded with this type of season after everything he's gone through.
Yeah, and again, goes back to he's just a great guy, right? I mean, and that's when he signed with Saskatchewan, obviously, I was a little hurt because I always loved catching up with him. Let's go back to this game particularly because, I mean, Coach Dickinson's not hiding this. I mean, he knows this is a big game. I was reading earlier, he showed the team the standings. He showed everybody how it works and what's going to happen. How do you feel like the team's going to respond to that? And if they don't respond, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but is Craig Dickinson coaching for his job these final 3 games maybe?
I think he is. I think you have to have a team that comes out and responds to the motivation and is just more disciplined. Discipline has been an issue for this team. And sure, it's up to the players to not take these penalties, but it's up to the coaches to have the players take responsibility and have consequences. And there hasn't been consequences for players really for most of the year. So I do think that this team, Craig needs to show that this team still believes in him, that they're listening to him, and that they can live up to these expectations and show up when you need to win a game, which is something the Riders just haven't done recently. They've kept things close, but like you lost to the Edmonton Elks. Like the Elks are on the upswing. Yes, they are getting better, but that was a game you really needed and a game that you probably might have looked ahead on. But that comes down to coaching. You have to be prepared every game and have points in this season. We've asked ourselves here, is this team prepared enough? Is that really what's holding them back?
The Riders are hosting the Grey Cup. How big of a disappointment would it be if the Riders didn't even make the playoffs in a year that they're hosting the Grey Cup?
It'd be a major disappointment. Like there is already calls, the team's in a playoff spot, and there's already calls for widespread changes because there was so many expectations here. Now, part of that is what happened in 2013. A lot of people have fond memories of the Riders winning at home here. And the expectations were there. This team liked to pretend like they weren't, but they were. And they haven't answered the bell in terms of living up to those. And it would just mean so much because the Riders are the team here in Regina, right? There's no other professional sports team here. This is what everyone goes to, where they spend all their hard-earned money on, which has gotten more expensive in recent years. Yeah. They expect a good product. They demand a good product. And as we've seen earlier, if they're not seeing it, they will boo the home team. The Rider fans have no qualms about doing that.
Yeah, and I maybe not get so sensitive when you do get booed. That was quite the storyline. Listen, I've been to Regina for the Memorial Cup a few years ago, so I know, whether or not they're going to be in it. There's going to be a party, and I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to this game. Before we go though, Britton, if the Riders will win this game on Friday, what's it going to take?
If the pass rush comes back, if you can put pressure on Dane Evans, get a few sacks, and build confidence, because that's really what has been the Achilles heel of this team, which was once a strength, not no longer. That helps this defense get off the field a little bit quicker. They get less tired and put the offense in just a better position field-wise to get some points. And so I think the pass rush is really a key for the Riders. Yeah, I mean, it's everybody wants to see the touchdowns, but I mean, just putting first downs together, field position is such an under discussed, I guess, part of the game, and should be a good one this Friday. Britton, I really appreciate connecting with you. I'm sorry for calling you the enemy, but it's just the title of the show. So I appreciate that. Even despite me calling you the enemy, you sat here for a few minutes to fill me in. I appreciate that. No hard feelings. Thank you. My thanks to Britton Gray for joining me today. My thanks to you as well. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode of this show or any of the other shows right here on the Ticats Audio Network. Not ready for summer to end? It doesn't have to with redtag.ca. Extend your summer and make more memories under the sun with fall or winter escape to paradise. Plan every part of your next vacation with redtag.ca's easy one-stop travel shop, all at redtag.ca. From all of us here at the Ticats Audio Network, I'm Louie Butko. Hope you have a great day.